Welcome to the Blogger Genius Podcast, brought to you by MiloTree. Here's your host, Jillian Leslie.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Blogger Genius Podcast. I'm your host, Jillian Leslie. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love building businesses on the internet, and I love helping you build yours. Because I am hashtag building in public, I wanted to give you an update on MiloTreeCart. This is the payment tool we've just rolled out to help you, bloggers and creators, sell digital products to your audience with ease. So these are things like digital downloads and paid workshops and memberships and coaching and courses. And I'm excited to announce that I am hosting a paid workshop for $10 on Zoom on October 6th at 1 p.m. Central Time. And I am going to show you how to build your digital product empire, because the goal is to find something that connects with your audience where they will pay you for whatever this product is, and then you stack products on top of it. Remember, if you have an audience and you're not selling directly to them, you are leaving money on the table. So please sign up. Go to empire.milotreecart.com. And I will be offering MiloTreeCart at a very discounted price. And if you buy it, you will get your $10 back. So again, empire.milotreecart.com. For today's episode, I have Jessica Holmes on the podcast. Wait till you hear her accent. She is the blogger behind the Sweetest Menu, and she is a dessert blogger. And what's so interesting is she will test her recipes over and over again. And when she shares her fails with her audience, they love it. So we talk about showing up authentically, what your audience wants from you. Also, in a previous life, Jessica was a copywriter. She's going to share her secrets for how she uses her copywriting skills when creating blog posts. You don't want to miss this. And her blog is beautiful and she's delightful. So without further delay, here is my interview with Jessica Holmes. Jessica, welcome to the Blogger Genius Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you are a delicious dessert blogger. Like you make all of these just amazing mouth-watering treats. So would you though, but you were a copywriter in a past life, and we're going to talk about that, but would you share how you became a dessert blogger, kind of when you started, what your journey was like, and where you are now?
Yes. So, well, I've always had a sweet tooth. I think I was born with those. But yeah, I was working as a copywriter. That was my professional career. And it was back in 2014 that I started the blog. And basically, I was doing some night classes. I was actually studying graphic design part-time and was doing that in the evenings and on the weekends. And it was finishing up. And I just kind of thought, outside of my full-time job, what was I going to do with my time? And that was right around the time when food blogs were really huge. And I had really started to develop an interest in baking and being in the kitchen. And I just thought, hey, I'm just going to start a food blog, jump in, have fun with it. And that's what I did. And I ended up blogging outside of my full-time job just for 6 years, actually, until, a long time, until it finally became my full-time thing in 2020.
Wow. And then also you had a family, and I'm sure, were you working and had kids and doing a food blog?
So I was working and doing the food blog. And then in 2020, when I took it full time, I actually then also had my first daughter, or my only daughter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So I actually finished up my full-time job when I was 5 months pregnant. So I kind of had this like tiny window where I was actually got to put a lot of time into the blog, and then I had a baby, and now it's a bit weird. It's, my time split between being a stay-at-home mum and running the business at the same time.
Got it. Okay. So when you are like, let's just go through your process, like how you think about, let's like dissect a blog post and how you think about what you want to create, and then your process of creating it. Yeah. Only because honestly, like I'm curious, like how you find these delicious desserts.
Yes. So I'm inspired a lot by travel. So for many years, my husband and I, we really prioritized travel in our lives. And when we ate out, at different places or in different countries, that's where I would get a lot of my inspiration and a lot of inspiration on different flavors and different ideas. And then sort of over the last couple of years with COVID, I haven't traveled overseas in almost 3 years now. It's been a little bit harder to get that inspiration, but I've probably turned to a lot of things like cooking shows, and obviously eating out like locally where we can. But I usually just get an idea in my head, and often I actually get sort of a visual idea of how I want something to look, and how I want something to turn out. And then I sort of just jump in the kitchen and I play around and do a lot of recipe testing until I get sort of the results that I need. And I often document that on Instagram stories and show people my fails and testing. And I usually actually include a little bit of that in my blog post as well about different things I've tried. If I might have tried an extra egg or a different raising agent, things like that. So we're kind of diving into a little bit of the science of baking, which I find my audience seems to really enjoy, and that's something I really enjoy. And then, obviously just try to create a blog post that is going to set my readers up for success, and help them create that recipe as much as, and replicate the results that I got as much as possible. So putting in lots of tips and helping them, and process shots and all that sort of thing. So it's quite involved, actually, the old blog post. It used to be like you just slap up a recipe and then tell people how great it was, right? And now
and how your grandmother taught you to
involved.
make this. Yes.
Yeah. That's
so
right.
Now, so I have a couple questions. So you're not starting with keyword research?
Of course.
Oops.
Oh, that's a good point. No, I do some, but I would say I'm 50-50. So I know keyword research is definitely a strategic way to go about it, but I'm also a very creative person. So I definitely create things that may not necessarily have the search volume, or might be a very competitive keyword. But if I think my readers are going to love it, my audience is going to love it, or I just love it and I just cannot not share it, I will create that recipe anyway.
That's so interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
It's so like you're kind of old school in that way.
Yeah.
Versus today, it feels very kind of mechanical. Not that you can't be creative, but like, where's the opportunity? I need to go toward that opportunity. I need to look at search volume. I need to look at my competing posts. I need to figure out how to kind of almost like gamifying it.
Oh, absolutely. It's totally a game. And it's like, it's almost mathematical. If you can do A, B, and C, you will get D. And that's great. And if you can operate your whole business like that, you probably will be successful, but it's just not, I definitely do some of that, don't get me wrong, but the other element is what I really enjoy. So I cannot get rid of the more creative, free-flowing side of things.
So a couple things too, you said, which I think is interesting. You're a baker, and baking is much more like chemistry. Like you can't mess it up in the way like I'm going to put together a stew, and my stew today might look different than my stew tomorrow, and they both could be tasty. But it's like if you are baking something, you need to get the eggs right. You need to get the sugar right. You need to get the bake time right. And you are the second dessert blogger who also you're two of like my favorite dessert bloggers who do treat it like science experiments and will do their recipe multiple times to really nail it down.
Yes, definitely.
And I feel like that's not always common.
No, it's not. Or at least it's something people don't share if they are doing it. But I love to share that. And honestly, it's the most engaged that I will get my audience is actually when I share my fails, especially so I use it, for content for something like Instagram stories. When I share, a cake that didn't work out or was incorrect texture or it sunk or something, and I cut it open and I show why. And then as time goes on, it'll be like, okay, well, I changed this, I added this, and oh, look how much better, this one is. And then we end up having all these tests. People absolutely love it. Like I get the most response from that. And also a lot of people saying that they're just really, which is kind of funny, but they're just really encouraged that someone who, they see me as this great baker has fails in the kitchen too, that they feel better about themselves. And that also, it makes them feel like they can maybe experiment with where they want to, and they can learn from my fails. So I'm constantly learning. I don't know everything. If I did, I probably wouldn't have failed in the kitchen. But yeah, and so I love to share that and the little insights that I've learned, and it's definitely hits home with my audience.
They always say in blogging or in life, like, share the scars, not the wounds, not the gaping wounds. And by you going, look, this didn't work, I think it's because like the eggs or the whatever. So it's not you crying in the kitchen, it's you kind of going, whoa, this didn't work, but let's do like a recap.
Let's talk about it. Yeah, that's right. And people often say like, oh, how do you not get upset? And I'm like, sometimes I do. Like if this is the 5th time I've made it, I'll get really frustrated. But at the same time, like I'm learning, and this is great content, and it's interesting to share with you. And I love that. And I love people go,
I love though that that's where you get your engagement.
Yeah, it
is by 100%. Being human.
Yes.
So how many, okay, so let's say so what was the most recent post you did?
Well, I just posted one. Well, I'm posting it this morning.
Yeah. What's the recipe?
That was actually a redo one. So that was an old favorite. But the most recent one that I tested was a banana cake. Okay. And I had to make that 4 times.
That was my next question. Right. How many times?
Yes.
4 times.
Yes. 4 times for that one.
So how long does it take you then to do a blog post? Like how often are you putting up new content?
Every week.
So just every week you're doing one new recipe, or are you again taking an old recipe, or are you updating old blog posts? Like how are you doing this?
Yes. So I try to 1 recipe a week. Usually probably I would say that's 3 new recipes a month, and once a month I'll try and update an old post, because I have lots of old thin content that needs updating.
Okay. Yes. And will you theme them? Like this month we're going to do Thanksgiving, even though I know you're not here in the United States. Or this month we're going to do summer fruit, or
I don't typically. I did last month in July, I did my first cookie month, but that was the first themed month I've done. Otherwise it's purely what I want to do. And what I feel like doing.
It's very refreshing talking to a blog. And again, you're having tremendous success. How many Instagram followers do you have?
200 and something.
Okay. So again, like, and you are like, people look to you as an expert, so it's working. But how was it for you as a food blogger to be out there, putting yourself out there? Because a lot of food bloggers I talk to kind of like hiding behind their food blogs. And the whole idea that now, I like to think of it this way. You're like, now in today's world, you're kind of standing in front of your food blog as if your food blog, let's say, was a brick and mortar store, kind of leading people in and saying like, hey, come take a look. I'm the face of this. I'm the creator of this. I want to share with you, instead of just saying like, here's where my food blog, here's where my kind of blog lives, and just go to the URL and go check it out. And I'll just kind of stand over here or like be in the closet.
Yeah. Yeah, that is something actually that I do struggle with. I think, because we were kind of talking about this before, it's that thing of whether that comes naturally to you or not. And I wouldn't say like I'm, I never desire to be an influencer, as they say, or someone who shares every bit of their life. I am quite like a private person. And also having a child now, sometimes, you get a bit conflicted whether you put their image up and things. So, it's kind of, I'm still trying to learn that balance of but knowing full well that people are going to connect much more with you or your brand if they can connect with you personally. So I do try to share more of, like you said, behind the scenes in the kitchen, like we were talking about the recipe testing and things like that. I should put my face up a little bit more. I do struggle a little bit with that. But that's something that's sort of like a goal of mine that I would like to do, is share a bit more of, have more of my talking head, if that makes sense. But yes, I do find that people connect with me when I do that, and do connect with your brand in a stronger way when they feel like they know you. And I do know that a core part of my audience do feel like they know me and have followed me for years, and they know my voice and they know who I am. So even when I don't maybe show my face, but I might show a video of what I'm doing, or my hands, making a cake or things like that, I feel like there's still that point of connection there, which is really important.
It's so funny. And I've shared this before. I have a 15-year-old daughter, and like the mantra that I tell her is like, nobody's looking at you, even though she thinks everybody's looking at her. It's amazing how we have to hear this over and over again, because I'm working with my designer, and she's like, I need a photo of you. And I send her a photo, and she like puts it into an image, and I go, oh my God, I hate this photo. And she turns around because she knows me so well, and she goes, don't worry, no one's looking at you. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. Like, here I am, like
True.
mom, like I'm so critical of me. And I think everybody is like commenting on who knows my hair or what I'm wearing. And
Totally.
But it was so funny to get a taste of that myself. I was kind of shocked,
Yes.
a little embarrassed when she called me
Yes.
out on it. But that is so
It's true. It's true.
So
and sometimes that's what I find hard. Like I've said to my husband before, because there's a lot of other bloggers, and they got full makeup and they're all dolled up in their Instagram stories or wherever they're sharing their TikToks and whatnot. And, I'm just at home with my kid, and, my hair's a mess and my face is a mess. But I also, so there's that thing of like, too embarrassed to be in front of the camera because, you're not looking your best that day. But then also, I don't want to just use filters, and, I want to use filters as little as possible. And I want to be a real person. Like, that's really important for me to be genuine and authentic. So it's kind of, trying to get that balance of like being real and authentic, but not showing up like in your pajamas.
I want to take a short break to remind you that Q4 is right around the corner. And really the goal is to direct your traffic where you want them to go so you can monetize it. Well, with MiloTree, we offer a custom pop-up as part of the package. And with it, you can add a custom image and a custom link and direct your visitors exactly where you want them to go. It's beautiful. To get it, go to MiloTree.com, sign up, get your first 30 days free. And now back to the show. So let's talk about a couple things. How do you monetize?
So the main way I monetize is through advertising. So I've done a little bit of sponsorship work, a little bit of affiliates over the years, but definitely the primary income comes from advertising. I'm very protective of my blog, very protective of my brand. So I find with sponsored posts and things like that, that it really has to be the right fit. And I find that that's fairly hard to come by for me personally. So, and I've also found that with my time, it's often more efficient for me and more profitable for me to spend time creating quality content than to spend time creating content for a brand where I get paid once and then that's it, rather than content that is continually paying off. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Okay. But now you said you had this big email list and that you've been growing.
Yes.
And how often are you emailing, and what are you using it for? To drive traffic?
Yes, primarily to drive traffic and that point of connection. So I've used it, to update readers on posts or things that are happening. send free ebooks and materials, things like that. But it definitely has a lot more potential than what I'm currently using it for.
Absolutely. We're going to lean into your email list.
Yes.
Because again, your email list, that's like money. Like I'm looking at your business and like, and by the way, like I want to eat all of your desserts and all of that. But like, I just go, oh, there's money, right? Like we're like picking apples on an apple tree. Like, oh, I see money here and money here. So we'll be talking about that. All right. Let's talk about copywriting. Which I feel like people don't even know what that is, like that's a thing, that it's a skill you can learn. Tell me, what is copywriting and how are you using copywriting in your business?
Yes. So I was a copywriter for over a decade professionally. And, that it's basically writing, but it can be so. I was a UX writer, which is talking about user experience. So basically, it's just using words in whatever form to, get a message across, or to guide a user or a reader through a process. Or look, it can be anything really. It can be something from the words on a button. It can be a heading. It can be long form content on a landing page. Obviously it doesn't even have to be online. It can be print, brochures, like anything. But basically it's just using your words to get whatever message you need to get across, but using them in a really clear, writing really simply, concise. And obviously, when you're working for a brand or a business, you're using their tone of voice, etc. But yeah, so basically it's just using your words.
So tell me then how you think about it as a blogger, like where you're intentionally using your copywriting skills.
Yeah, 100%. So for me as a blogger, it took a few years, and that's partly because what we were saying before, when you first started, it was much more about just slapping up a blog post and just writing a few words and not really putting much time into it. But as we've moved on and we're playing more by Google's rules, and we're really trying to write content that shows our expertise and resonates with our readers and also has a purpose. It's not, we're not being long-winded and waffling on about something irrelevant. It's taking those skills and putting them into the blog. So for me, I think bloggers focus a lot on recipe testing or baking or their skill in cooking, and then their skills in photography. But I think the third bucket is writing and how you connect with your readers through your writing. So that's something that I now would almost put in an equal amount of time across those three things. Yes, and making sure that I put effort into my writing, and it's even things like getting it proofread, like every blog post, getting it proofread by one or two other people, just making it important in your structure of what you're doing. Does that make sense?
It does. I think it's not just fluff or
thing.
Right.
Yes.
The thing that you don't think about, or the thing you go, oh, I hate the writing.
Yes. And it used to be like, even for me, because I was working full-time as a copywriter, I would be like, oh, I have to go home and write 1,000 words on a blog post, like boo. And it would be my lowest priority, it'd be my last thing. You've done everything else, you've done the photos, you've done this. And it's just like, quickly just slap it up with the words. But now, like, no, like the words is very, very important to me. And
okay, so let's get
the post. Yeah.
Let's get into nitty gritty.
Yeah.
You're writing your post.
Yes.
Tell me about the tone. Tell me about the word choice. Tell me about your paragraph length. What do you think when you're writing?
Yes. So short and sweet.
Like, how do you help me who's like, oh, I hate the writing part of the post? Tell me your tips, like your top, let's say 5 tips to writing that post with intention.
Okay. Yes. So, well, first you have to decide what your brand voice is. So for me, So for me, as an example, like my brand is, well, it's an extension of myself, but it's fun, it's joyful. But I'm also targeting beginner bakers. So I want everything to be easy and clear. So when I'm sitting down to write, I definitely want that passion and enthusiasm for the recipe to come across. But I have to remember that this isn't about me, and this is about someone sitting on the other side who is going to attempt this, and I'm going to choose to write it to someone who I'm going to assume has never made this cake or whatever it is, and hasn't stepped into the kitchen much at all. So it's always making sure that I'm not assuming too much knowledge, right? So it's very easy, as the more skilled you get, the more you assume people know. So it's very important when you're baking to break down elements, or even when you use words like people say creaming the butter and sugar. What does creaming mean? Like, I remember when I first started 10 years ago, I asked a lot of these questions, but now that I know, it's easy to just go, cream the butter and sugar, blah, blah, blah. Now I go, no, wait, what does that mean? Will this person, who hasn't stepped into the kitchen, will they understand what this means? So,
your first tip would be write for a beginner. So they're not overwhelmed.
Correct.
Okay, give me tip number 2.
Yes.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Short and sweet.
What does that mean?
No, that's fine. Short and sweet. So this would be, don't make it too long. So this isn't not talking about word count necessarily. Your blog can be as long as you need it to be, but no longer than that. So you include all the information that you need, but I'm even talking down to the sentence. So sentence length should be short. Shorter the sentence, the better. Less repetitive, the better. When you write something, sometimes one thing I like to do is, if I'm going to write a paragraph, I might be writing about how to do this, line your pen or whatever it is, but then I'll go back and I'll read it and I'll say, can I say that shorter? Like, my natural way to say it might be to waffle on in 3 sentences, but then I go back and go, you know what, I can say that in 1 sentence, more succinct, more clear. So I'll shorten it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Another tip I would give would be not writing like a robot, but writing for the reader, which is sort of what we talked about before. But I think, when bloggers go really into the SEO world, and like you were saying before, when they do the keyword research and they're writing that very structured post, kind of just forget that there's a real person behind there, and that sometimes the easiest way to get information across is to talk like you're talking to a friend. So it's having that friendly element, and also that kind of changes your blog post from being like every other blog post, because it puts you in there and your personality as you write in a way that's easy for people to understand, and not just write like you're a Wikipedia page. Yes.
Okay.
So it's not just getting information across, it's getting information across in a way that's easy to understand, in a way that connects with the person on the other side, but in a way that's short and sweet, really clear, really concise. And the other thing I would mention is spelling mistakes and consistency is really important. So obviously, these days we really have no excuse for spelling mistakes or grammar, but it gets past the best of us. So I highly recommend getting someone to proofread your work. And
who proofreads yours? Who proofreads yours?
My husband, who's very good at catching mistakes. He's a lawyer, so he's got that, crossing every T and dotting every I. And the other thing, is inconsistency. So one thing I highly recommend to people is putting together a like a brand guideline or something, but it's just where you choose how you're going to spell certain words and how you're going to capitalize certain words, and write it down on a spreadsheet, because over the years you'll find that you might spell things differently, and one thing that will make a website or a brand seem more professional than another is consistency in that way.
So ounces is, you spell it out, or you write OZ or whatever.
Yes, exactly. And even words like, for me, things like overbeat or over measure. That can be 2 words, it can be 1 word, it can be hyphens. So like sometimes you just need to write it down and choose what you're going to do, and then you just stick to that forever rather than having it spelt 3 different ways across 3 different blog posts. Do you know what
I do. Now let's talk about, okay, so this is terrific. So when you're writing your blog posts, like be thinking about the reader, think about shortening it. Like one thing that as I've started to lean into copywriting, I am, again, I see mistakes everywhere. Like
everywhere.
I want to take out my red pen and cross out, like edit the crap out of stuff that I see other people doing. Oh, and by the way, these are brands. These are brands. It's not like 100%. I'm like doing this against blogs or anything. Oh my God.
You'll notice it everywhere.
You do. Like, you're like, isn't there an easier way to say this? Or, whoa, like, here's the other thing I think people forget. Most of us are consuming content on our phones. We are writing it on our laptops. And when you are consuming stuff on your phone, and I like, if I can't scroll through and get the gist, like you've lost me. If I have to like really read your stuff, like who has time for that?
Yeah.
I've become
exactly right.
a gist reader.
Well, that's it. And that's how you use headings. That's how you use bullet points, lists. And that's why it's really important when you're proofreading your work to proofread it on a different device. So like you said, you might write it on your laptop or your desktop, but it's a great idea to proof it on your phone or someone else to proof it on a different device, because it looks differently. The lines are different. It's a great way to like refresh and really see those mistakes. Actually, where I see a lot of mistakes is menus at restaurants.
Oh, yes.
When
Go ahead.
You really just want to go to the waiter and go, oh, it's spelling mistakes constantly.
That's
all
funny.
the time. And I think, why doesn't anyone tell them?
Oh, that's so funny. That is so funny. I would say too, and again, like I work with a lot of women, and there are certain things I see, which is we overwrite, we over-explain, and we over-apologize. So there are so many words that we can just cut out and make things more direct, clearer, instead of the kind of like, hey, I find this with selling. So instead of somebody, let's say at the top of their email going, hey guys, here's what I'm doing, and I think this is really cool, and I think this would really benefit you, blah, blah, blah. They're kind of like, let's get down to the bottom of the email or the bottom of the blog post and be like, hey, like, I don't like, hey,
by
don't
the way,
here's this little thing that I'm offering and you can buy it, but like, no pressure, because who am I to kind of ask for this sale?
For this.
And like, we just diminish, but we diminish too by overwriting.
Yes.
Our messaging.
I absolutely agree. Yes, that's right.
So I go through ruthlessly and we'll look at all the buts, look at all the so's, look at all the filler words, and just start cutting them down. And like, I will read, let's say, those sales pages from kind of these experts. And I literally want to take out my red pen and go, are you kidding me? Like, I'm supposed to read all this copy? Like, this is so overwritten. So I have really worked on cutting down my words. Just to be super clear. Now let's talk about, though, how to inspire somebody to take action with our words. Yes. And do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of like what you were just saying before with the email example. Like, sometimes I feel like there's no reason to overthink it. Like, you can just be short and sweet, and you can be honest, and people don't have to take you up on it, but it's just encouraging. So for me, obviously, it's always trying to encourage people to click over and read my recipe and make it. So I guess I just try to use my words to encourage people to make it, and to make it fun, and I don't really know.
Because I would say that when it comes to selling, like we were talking about even like what text on a button, is it just buy now?
Totally.
Is it like get the recipe? Is it,
Yes.
change your life? Like, what is it to inspire somebody to do that? And one thing that I would say that's super easy, like if you're selling something, or if you want somebody to take action, whether it be in a blog post, whether it be in an email, say it multiple times. Ask at the top, maybe in the middle, at the end. Like you can ask different ways, or you can kind of direct people in different ways. But don't be afraid to go, hey, this will, like, because it's this idea again of getting out of my own movie as the star of my own movie. But it's like, if I know that if you make this recipe, you're going to be happy, to go do it now. Like, here it is, click here or whatever. And then saying again, like, this will change your life, or your mother-in-law is going to love you for this.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's also making sure you have one clear purpose for whatever you're doing. So like you said, if you're writing an email, that it's the main call to action is that one is like go through to the recipe. So it's not, people do get overwhelmed and confused. So keeping it simple, having that one thing that you want them to do, and like you said, directing them there in a clear way is definitely the best way.
Yeah, because these are just things that I've been picking up, that if there's an action you want people to take that you think will benefit them, you have every obligation to get them to do it.
Yes, absolutely. And you don't have to feel bad about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the things that, as I have been leaning into copywriting, I notice that I will edit the crap out of my own stuff, because I fall for all like, hey, like, don't think I don't do that. Like, well,
oh, absolutely. No. We all do it.
So I have to edit. I have to like go over and edit. I have to take out all the filler words. I have to too, like you were saying, think about my goal. Like what is, and I would say, like, what is the goal of this blog post? Even that, like, while you are a content creator, you are also a content marketer, which is there's a goal. There should be a goal in the post. And maybe it is go get it, like, do this, make this recipe. And it might be also, and get on my list, like make sure that there is something, or share it, or talk about this, or who knows, leave a comment that there needs to be like a meta goal that you thought of even before you start writing, or at least during that process, so that everything again is aligning to getting to, one thing that I have also noticed in my own development is I used to think that if I created like a choose your own adventure, that was the best. And then I've realized nobody wants a choose your own adventure.
That's so true. It's too much, too confusing for people.
It's too much choice.
People get too much choice. People get lost along the journey. Yeah, you got to keep it. It's like what we were saying before, short and sweet. You got to keep it really clear, direct people to that one thing, like you said, that you want to do. And if you wanted them to do multiple things, then you might have to set up different things, like different email lists or things like that. But you've got to keep people on that straight and narrow.
Definitely. Okay. If you were to give one piece of advice to a food blogger who is just starting out, what would it be?
Just starting out. Yes.
Like something that took you a while to learn, that you went, I should have done that.
Yeah, I mean, SEO, I think, is a big one. I think the quicker you can learn that and really understand it, not just learn the principles, but really understand the why, probably the better your business will be, and the faster it will grow.
And how did you learn SEO? What did you do?
Yeah, I actually learned the core principles of it in my day job.
Okay.
So when it came to the blog, I did understand what SEO was because I was doing SEO copywriting. But I didn't understand the why for quite a long time. So, I could follow the rules like we've talked about before, but I didn't understand, that ultimately the rules are there to provide some kind of structure and form, but really it's for the reader behind it. And it's trying to put your content in a way that's best for them and that's easy for them to read and that shows your expertise. But a lot of those words, you go, oh, Google wants you to show your expertise. That's easy to, like, it's easy to hear that, but not really understand what does that actually mean behind that, and how can I actually show my expertise in a blog post, and what even is my expertise? There's like a whole thing down there that you really do need to go through as a business and ask yourself those questions. And
all right,
really
so wait,
understand.
I have to pause you. What is your expertise and how do you show it?
Well, that's something that you will need to discover for your own business. Obviously, for me, it's baking. So I say that would be my expertise, but it goes narrower than that. So like we were mentioning before, for me, it's really going for the home baker and it's really going for the amateur baker. That's who I'm really targeting. So that's where I can shine. I'm not a pastry chef. I'm not doing complicated recipes. I'm doing recipes for the average person at home, and I want to set them up for success. And I'm going to use my knowledge and then the way I can give that knowledge and teach someone to be an expert themselves. So like, it's how you take that knowledge and then how you portray it and how you share it with someone. And that can take a while to find. And often when you're starting a blog, people often can change genres, they can change names and what they're doing. And it's the same thing as your writing style, the same thing as your photography style. Sometimes these things just take time, but the quicker that you can kind of figure that out and stick to it and find something that sits well with you, sits well with your audience, you can find an audience that responds to that, like the better and the faster your business is going to grow. But in saying that, another tip that I would have for beginner bloggers would be actually to get like a mentor or to join groups with other bloggers and learn from other people who are actually in this industry, because it's a funny little world.
It is a funny world. Yeah, it's quirky. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's lots of, I was just about to say, there's lots of little quirks and there's lots of little things and there's a bit of insider knowledge. And that's something that, you can lurk around forums or websites and things like that, but sometimes just getting that firsthand knowledge from people that are doing this and have built something and have that experience will probably be like gold to someone who's new.
And would you say get into some Facebook groups and listen to what people are saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you can even take it offline, like I've struggled with this to find people who actually live in my own city, but like for some people, they live in a place where they can find people who live in their own city or something, and you can connect with bloggers or meet up with other kind of entrepreneurs or things like that. That is just brilliant.
Yes, it's so funny. You are I did a podcast yesterday and I asked the same question, and it was in a totally different niche, a guy who like teaches Facebook ads. And he said the same thing, like why he's been successful is because he surrounded himself with a group of entrepreneurs who were doing the same thing, and they could share best practices and they could share each other's audiences and they could do all of this stuff, and that it really accelerated his growth.
Yeah.
So I think that's so interesting.
Yeah. And it's
quite said the same thing.
Yeah, it's quite a lonely business. And if you don't necessarily have colleagues and things like that. So it's a great way to, just even enjoy what you do and create more of like a friendship or a co-workers and, people that you can work alongside. It's wonderful and will kind of bring another element to your business and make you feel less isolated, I think.
Totally. All right, Jessica. If people want to reach out to you, see what you're doing, check out your blog, what is the best way?
Yes, please come find me over at sweetestmenu.com. That's where you'll find all my recipes. And then, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sweetest Menu. I'm usually over there every day. I love to hang out. Send me a message. I answer everyone. And I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Okay, before you go, I have one more question.
Yes.
3
Yes.
favorite desserts.
Oh no, that's so hard. It's
It's like
a
picking
really
amongst
hard
your
question.
children.
It is, my goodness. But I'm a huge cooking person, so I don't even know if they really, are necessarily dessert, but I will take a cookie any day over almost anything. So I would put just a classic chocolate chip cookie in there. I do love a good croissant, which I cannot make and have never attempted to make, but I love going to the best bakeries in town and getting a good croissant. And what else would I put in there? Maybe I do love a good brownie. But then if I'm going out for dessert or something, it would be something special like a panna cotta or, a chocolate lava cake, or I don't know, just anything super special and indulgent. Cheesecake. Look, I can't choose. This is a terrible question.
Well, I just have to say this has been so fun and I love talking to you. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, thanks for having me. I've had a wonderful time.
I hope you guys like this episode. For me, what resonated was how much respect Jessica has for her audience, how protective she is of her brand. And I like that she's willing to create recipes that don't just follow the formula, like where she'll do it without doing keyword research. And you know what? She's been really successful. So before I go, first, please come to my new workshop where I'm going to show you how to build your digital product empire. Head to empire.milotreecart.com. Also, we are going to be offering MiloTreeCart a lifetime deal at a very special price, so you might not want to miss this. Again, empire.milotreecart.com, and I will see you here again next week.